uniforms to the North Bend Middle School. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Very generous.
Does she have a student on the team? I'm just curious.
She does have students, but I don't know which team.
Okay. Michelle, public participation, we have none. Okay. They were good. Even if we're not, we're going ahead. Okay, we're live again. Agenda item 5, communications, 5A. Please, board reports. Do we have any board reports from anything happen?
The OSB. We've got some great education on the happenings around the state, school boards and initiatives. So it's really good conference. That's what networking in.
Anybody else on?
It was a great conference.
So the ODE speaker on day 2 was Dr. Charlene Williams. I think she's the head. I don't know if that makes you the director or the president. But she talked about ODEs and priorities now, and the #1 priority for ODE, you could have slapped me, was academic excellence. And so that was a change. So I was really pleased to hear that. It was a good thing. So we'll watch that space and see if actions match words. So, yeah, it was good. Okay, 5B, student representatives to the board, Alita Nunez and Jordan Prince. And then you guys can sit right there.
So, as they come up, I have to say one little thing about Jordan. I don't get a chance to interact with a lot of students from my situation being superintendent. But I still go to a lot of things, I see a lot of stuff, and so I make observations. And so, one of the things that I noticed last year when I first came on was I saw this person at football games running out and doing like a tee and dance and getting the ball and getting this and getting that. I had no idea who she was. And so, oh, that's Gary's daughter. Well, that's cool. She's got that and and then you continue on. You find out she plays soccer, and so this year, as I recall, she was. The goal, or what was your position in soccer this year?
Oh, I was like a striker.
Okay, so she was a striker in soccer, so she's out there, and she's still doing the football thing. She's helping out, she's doing this and doing that. And what if you just who is that person running around doing all this stuff? Who is that person working so hard? Who is that person doing all this stuff? And then you look at the look on her face, and it's always like I don't know if I've ever seen her not smile. So I just want to say, from my observation, a person who has a servant's heart, a servant who works hard at what they do, even when it's a thankless position, like running around for her dad, going out of the football field and getting the football and tees and doing stats or whatever. She just does it to the best of her ability, and so I've always just been excessively impressed. She didn't even know this. She's one of my favorite people in all of the schools because of the kind of heart that she has, and just what I've seen and what I've observed over the last couple of years. So, Jordan, thanks for
Thank you.
She's also, you were Miss Flame too, correct?
Yes.
So the students think the same.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, so we have a lot of good things going on at North Bend High School. This past weekend we finished our fall sports. We had 2 girls qualify for the cross country state championship, who was freshman Addison Horning, who finished 12th place, and junior Ellie Massey, who finished 15th. Our girls soccer team made it to the first round of the OSAA playoffs, but fell short to LeGrand High School. Our boys soccer team made it to the OSAA playing game, but lost to Phoenix High School. And our volleyball team also made it to the first round of the OSAA playoffs after beating Tillamook High School at home for their playing game.
At our last home game for football against Mazama, we celebrated our band, cheer, and football seniors. But it was also our Miss Flame game, which has been a tradition between North Bend Fire Department and North Bend High School since 1958. We crowned Jordan Prince as our 2024 Miss Flame, voted by all the students at North Bend High School.
We also have a lot of other good things outside of our sports. We have our drama dogs putting on the play Clue, which is this weekend is the last chance to watch. Showtimes are 7 p.m. Friday or Saturday, or even Sunday at 2 p.m. On November 22nd, our National Honor Society Science will be going to the State of the Coast Conference located in Seaside, Oregon. This event is sponsored by Oregon State University. Our knowledgeable team traveled to Gold Beach yesterday and brought home a trophy. Our Z Club is currently collecting canned foods for the Knights of Columbus through December 6th. Our goal is to collect over 3,000 cans for those in need in our community. Next Thursday, November 21st, our Wave Stance team will be presenting their fall showcase at the North Bend High School gym at 7 p.m.
This past weekend, we hosted the 4A OSAA volleyball state tournament. We had a huge turnout of student volunteers that helped participate in selling 50-50 raffle tickets and helping out in the concession stand. Winter sports start next Monday, November 18th, which includes basketball, wrestling, swimming, and cheer. Our first basketball game will be held at home on December 4th. Please come watch and support our team's sports season.
Thank you.
So Vince, North Bend and Marshfield worked together to bring this tournament here?
Yes, so like the basketball tournament where both schools host games, in the volleyball tournament, both schools hosted. This year, Marshfield hosted all of the 3A tournament games, and North Bend hosted all of the 4A tournament games. And then next year, it will flip-flop, so North Bend Marshfield hosts the 3A tournament games. And so, unlike the basketball, where they start off in both schools, and then all the final day's activities end up over at Marshfield High School, and the big championships being there for both the girls and boys. During volleyball, the schools hosted all the way to the championship. So at 6:30 on Saturday night, last Saturday, the championship match between actually two conference rivals, Marshfield and Marist, competed in the championship, and that's a repeat of last year's championship. In 23, Marist actually upset Marshfield. Marshfield in the tournament was the number 1 seed in the Boston championship, and then on Saturday night, Marshfield returned the favor, and Marshfield was the state champion.
Well, thanks for the work that you and the ADs and your counterpart in Marshfield did. Yeah, that's a good thing bringing this to the community.
Yeah, I think I heard an estimate that it probably brought in $500,000 to our local economy to have the teams come. And I went to we made the final 8 last year. In fact, we finished 4th in 23. And the tournament was at Springfield High School. Springfield had been hosting it for a number of years. And Springfield chose not to host it. So that's one of the reasons why we moved, because Springfield said, okay, we posted it. We've done our turn. But when you went into Springfield, there wasn't, the volleyball 3A, 4A didn't kind of own the town. It was an event that was happening at the high school, just like any other event happening at any other high school. One of the things that Foosbury and North Bend does well is when we put on a tournament, we do some very special things for kids and for their families and for the schools. Businesses that are assigned to each team, and they get to go there and they cheer them on. And
agenda item 5C, association reports, North Bend Education Association report, Eva Varga.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I think collectively, it feels like this has been a really good start to the year. I think I'm just feeling more calm this year, and I think a lot of teachers have shared that same sentiment. We're enjoying the strategic planning process. Those who've been involved with that have had positive things to say and have really enjoyed collaborating with you all, those of you who've attended, and just hearing the collective community vision, I guess, for our future. And at least when I walk away from those meetings, I feel like there's a common thread in terms of what we're all hoping to get out of this whole process. And so that's been really positive. At Hillcrest and North Bay, the teachers have expressed that they really like having a full-time vice principal at each of the schools. That's really helped in a myriad of ways. But each of the vice principals are reaching out to staff, and teachers, checking in with them. They're very visible. They're helping, manage behavior issues as well. And so it's just been a positive change. At Hillcrest, choir and OBOB, Oregon Battle of the Books, are both underway. These are after-school clubs that I believe take place on Tuesdays. And there's a lot of students. I should have had a number available, but a lot of students are participating in those after-school clubs. And in January, we're going to be starting at Hillcrest. We're also going to have an Estuary Explorers after-school club as well. And that's a collaboration with South SLU. And I'm going to be the teacher that's collaborating with them to do that. So I'm really excited to get involved more. And also really exciting at the elementary level, we have a substitute, Kathy Grieg, who primarily substitutes at Hillcrest. And she has been honored as the runner-up for the Oregon Substitute Teacher of the Year. And so she recently attended a dinner in their honor. And so that's a really exciting recognition for our school district. At the middle school, they've expressed that there's some struggle to find substitutes, and I think that's something we're hearing all over the place. Not anything that you control, but it does impact morale or whatnot. But it's just something that was shared. And then also at the high school, they've also said things are going well. It's a really good start to the year. Bridges expressed that their microterm 1 had finished. It's now been a few weeks ago, but it was one of their best terms ever. And so they were just really excited and positive with how things are going this year. So, and does the slides work? Yeah, okay. So, yeah. For the extra mile recognition, when that comes up, there's just a few slides tonight. All right, is it not going to be on those? Yeah. It doesn't have to be. I just, anywho, I can go ahead and go to the next one, November. Okay, so at Hillcrest, Carol Peabody is our PE teacher, and she was nominated by Tammy Tim. Tammy said that Mrs. Peabody comes in happy and present every day. She works with all of the students, of course, as a specialist, and she knows each and every one of them very well. Whenever there's a new student, she reaches out to the teachers and asks questions and does takes that extra step to get to know the student before they come to her class. And so Mrs. Peabody motivates our students and teachers, and Mrs. Tim says she's grateful to have her on our team. And the next one is Barbara Schultz. Whoops. There we go. Barbara Schultz, she teaches Title I. Okay, there's an error. She is the the resource room teacher. I didn't correct that slide, so sorry about that. But Anywho, Ashley Maurer stated that she is there for all the students and is always willing to help any student at any time. She is patient and understanding and really goes above and beyond to make a connection with them, and she makes them feel seen, heard, and cared for. And Ashley stated she loves working in her room and learning things from her. So I will correct that typo. The next slide. All right, Maria Ramirez is an educational assistant at North Bend Middle School. Nico Friedman stated that Maria is a sweet and sensitive advocate for all our students, regardless of ability or presence in this school. She's always going the extra mile to ensure her students have access to the resources that make them successful, and actively pursues building her knowledge of the courses that she attends to better help the students in the classroom. Nico states, I have literally seen her take some of the work and complete it on her own, not asking for an answer sheet, all while tirelessly providing services in real time for the kiddos. Her work with our most vulnerable students is above and beyond, and she deserves to be recognized, as do all of our wonderful EA and support staff, for the endless impact that she has on positively building relationships with both students and teachers. And he is extremely grateful for her presence, which is both paramount and irreplaceable. All right, and the next one, and this one is a collaborative team recognition from Rhiannon Metz, who's the new special ed teacher at North Bend Middle School. She wanted to recognize each of her educational assistants, Emily West, Susan Yamashita, Heike Bowen, Kiwi Ivers, and Lisa Nelson. She states that this team of professionals gives their heart and soul to the kiddos of Room 72 at North Bend Middle School. Their commitment is evident in their student-first approach to support. They meet students where they are, understanding that students who live with disabilities have enormous capabilities, and working from an asset-based mindset. Each of these women help their students navigate around and over the educational barriers to achieve to their highest potential. All right, and now next we have Tanya Romanik from North Bend High School. She's a secretary. Sarah Wenborn nominated her, stating, no matter how busy Tanya is, she always makes time to help her fellow secretaries. And not only does she go above and beyond to help others, but she also goes above and beyond at ensuring that the colleges are informed of any schedule changes and important information in advance. She always has a smile on her face, even when she's having a rough day. And lastly is Christina Geierman. She is a science teacher at North Bend High School. Not only is Christina an incredibly helpful resource for everyone at the high school and an awesome teacher, she's been a huge help, as Bristol Underwood, who wrote this, states, I navigate my first year teaching the junior biology course, and Christina has put up with my many questions and weird schedule. So we wanted to just appreciate each of these individuals and celebrate their work. And I'm glad I could bring them forward to you. Yeah.
Okay, agenda item 5B, Superintendent Report, Vince Swider.
All right, wanted to throw out that strategic planning, last night we had a alignment team meeting number 2. It was all online, it was a team session, and it was a great session. I continue to be impressed throughout the entire process. It's every group that looks at what's brought before them as I think I used an analogy of like with a member superintendent of an OSBA, we're talking about strategic planning, like chainsaw carving. You've got this big block, or a tree, and then you start kind of working it and try to create something from that. And every time you get together, you refine a little bit more, and it just begins to take shape. And that's this process. Every time another group looks at it, it gets refined just a little bit more. It takes a little bit more of a shape, like it's come together, like it's something that's going to be a finished product. And so I'm just really appreciative of all the people who had last night's meeting. It was a great meeting. Thank you to the people in the room who brought similar to last week when we had the core team in the morning and the instructional leadership team, the instructional team in the afternoon. The next one of those will be December 12th. So that's coming up. Voters asked a group of us to get together on the 25th to have some legislative input. He's got some conversation he wants to have about classroom and classroom behavior. He's working on a concept, potential bill that he's going to put forward the legislature. It would be a bill to what I would consider to be immediately change something. It's most likely a bill that would commission some kind of a study about the classroom behavior and environment. I challenged him one day at a meeting that we had at lunch, and he said, if you want to do a study on learning loss for the students who are not the problem. Whenever we have to do classroom fairs, how much time do kids lose that are, and that are not the reason why we have a classroom fair. And so I think he took that to heart a little bit, and so part of what he's crafting may have been that may have been a seed that kind of push towards some of the work that he's doing in that area. So we're working on that for the 25th. We already know about CLU. The girls talked a little bit about that this weekend, so last weekend. I did put on the report to look at it, and we just did this yesterday, right? So it's all electronic. I'm not sure you have this packet.
I gave them all.
Oh, you all have a copy. So you can see what the schedule is as of this point in time for upcoming holiday events. The concerts and turkey trots and all those kind of things. So I'm not going to say them all out loud. You can take a look and see. Encourage you to be a part of those. I do want to say though, if I do say something, I went to the choirs and the bands, all performed at the Egyptian last year, and it was an incredible night of music. And so really, if you want to get a sense for what's happening in our choir and band program, go to the Egyptian. It's just a tremendous night of music. It's a lot of fun, and they do an excellent job. Law conference is coming up. I'll tell you more about it after we're done. Thank you for moving the December board meeting to the 12th so that we can let our administrators go to that and not feel like they have to come back for the meeting on Thursday night. Girls, we've got winter sports. The last thing I want to mention is something that's not on here, and that is my appreciation to all of the people at the high school who helped make the Veterans Day luncheon and ceremony happen on Monday. I had the opportunity to be there and just kind of greet them, but the real work happened with, Chris, how many volunteers were wearing shirts?
We have 50 students.
50 students, probably another, 5 to 10 adults helping with that. That's the ones that we saw. Chef Murphy and his crew that put on the actual luncheon. The choir sang multiple songs, including our national anthem, and the medley. The band, the jazz band played, and then played during the actual during the lunch itself. So there was background music during the lunch. There were flag holding ceremony and a ceremony for those missing in action, POWs. It was just really a tremendous time. So it was well done. It's a pleasure to host that. It's our second year of hosting that, and it was just so nice to do that. I really appreciate it. So thank you, Chris, you and everybody at the high school for doing that.
Thank you, Vince. Okay, agenda item 6, action consent agenda items. Is there a motion to approve the action consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Nathan has made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Carol is second. So there's a motion to approve the action consent agenda. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 7-0. Okay. Agenda item 7, urban renewal, the city of North Bend. And I'll give a little background on this. The school district received a document package on October 23rd. Pretty big package, 53-page document, pretty weighty topic also, containing exhibits A and B, and requesting approval of 2 resolutions. We don't have this identified as an action item on tonight's agenda. A little background, on October 23rd starts a 45-day period to submit feedback, written recommendations, and that would be December 6th. We have to have that in by. The city has requested our approval by their next meeting, which is December 10th. Our next regular scheduled board meeting is December 12th. So I think the board members know pretty much what standard work process for significant work items like this is to utilize a work session. Our next regularly scheduled work session is in January. And typically work sessions, prior to that, we perform our due diligence. And then at the work session, it's a great format to have collegial conversations between the members and whoever's there. And it's not unusual for some follow-up questions after the work session. After that, we usually have a time of 2-week period between the work session and the next regularly scheduled meeting, which is typically where it shows up on the agenda. And usually that time, board members have time to reflect and cogitate on what's being presented. So tonight we'll have a presentation by Elaine Howard. She's all queued up, followed by a question and answer period where we have David Millier, the city manager, and Jeff Bridgens, the finance director, here. They'll be answering that. After that, I think the board, I'd like you guys and ladies to think about how you'd like to proceed timing-wise and schedule options. I guess, this is options for the timing of this include, but are not limited to, we can discuss and, we have presentation tonight, Q&A, we could discuss and vote on the resolutions at the December 12th meeting, Thursday. We could discuss it at the next regularly scheduled work session in January. We could schedule a special board meeting between now and December 12th. So those are just some things to think about, which way you'd like to go and how comfortable you are at the end of the evening.
I'd like to have the work session.
Okay. In January or?
January.
We'll come back to that. And with that, Tim Kreider, if you want to, Tim, did you have any?
I can kind of review the resolutions as soon as the presentation's over, and then
Okay.
I can give you some of the things that I've researched in terms of questions we had initially.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Judy, so peace of mind.
Well, Tim's done a lot of work, a lot of due diligence reading over the document. It's a heavy read, by the way, those 53 pages. You got to put it down after a while. Accounting guys, you probably read stuff like that.
No, it's a heavy read.
So with that, Elaine Howard, who is a consultant for the city, is she Miss Urban Renewal, Mrs. Urban? She's a matter expert, put it that way.
So, David, are you going to say anything first, or do you want me to just go ahead and do the presentation?
I think we agreed, go ahead because of time, go into the presentation, and then we'll take Q&A afterwards.
Okay, so are they showing it on their screen? Okay,
Well, we see.
She can, it'd be better if she did this.
You can actually guide it from yours. You should all have co-host abilities.
I'll try to share.
All right.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I am the consultant working with the City of North Bend on this potential substantial amendment. I've done urban renewal consulting since 2004, so about 20 years. It's all my firm does, so I know the statute fairly well and what can and cannot be done. I've worked on this project with Tiberius Solutions. They do all of the financial analysis for us. The things that I will go through are the process and role of the North Bend School District in a substantial amendment to a city urban renewal plan, the actual amendment, a financial overview, and then what the potential next steps would be. Usually a school district doesn't have a role in an urban renewal plan. Usually we will just send you information on a potential amendment. It's required that we send information to all taxing districts. However, the statute does require vote on two different components of this substantial amendment to the North Bend Urban Renewal Plan. The first, concurrence by taxing districts, is required for a maximum indebtedness increase. Maximum indebtedness is the total spending limit of an urban renewal plan. It is the controlling feature of a plan. When they have reached their maximum indebtedness, the plan terminates taking division of taxes, and it can still continue spending the money that it has, but it no longer takes money from the other taxing jurisdictions. To get a maximum indebtedness increase, the city council makes the decision on this amendment. They must receive concurrence from taxing districts representing 75% of the tax increment proceeds from a permanent rate levy. And you must concur in writing, which we have, the adoption of a resolution is the way to do that. To reach that 75%, the city would have to concur, the school district would have to concur, and the port or another district that has an equal tax rate to the port's tax rate would have to concur. That would equal that 75% concurrence required. The second ask from the city is approval of a public building project. Further on in this description, we will talk a little bit about their major projects. Their major project is a housing project, and a potential component of that housing project is relocating the city hall into that housing project. However, the statute requires, if an urban renewal agency does a public building project, that 3 of the top 4 impacted taxing districts must approve that public building project in the plan. So your approval is needed for the city hall moving, or if any component of that addressed the school district. If we do not get 3 of these 4 districts, that plan can still go ahead, but that public building project of the plan would not be able to go ahead. So 2 separate items, and that's why we have 2 separate resolutions for your concurrence, just to make it clear that on one, you would be considering the maximum indebtedness increase, and on the other, the public building project. Schools are impacted by urban renewal a little differently than the other taxing districts are. A regular taxing district is impacted directly from urban renewal. They receive less income off of growth in the urban renewal area than they would if there were no urban renewal area. This is a graph my staff put together in 2016, so it is a little outdated in terms of what the numbers might be on the allocations, but it does show the entirely different funding scenario for your schools, which I'm sure you are well aware of. You're funded through the state school fund. The permanent rate tax revenues impact that local school district because they don't put money into that state school fund. However, the legislature allocates other funding sources to that state school fund to make up that per pupil ratio on which you are funded. So when we talk about urban renewal impact on local schools, we say it's an indirect impact. The impact is on the state school fund. That state school fund gets backfilled. There is always the question of, if urban renewal didn't exist, would the state increase the amount of the per pupil funding? And we don't know the answer to that. That's a political question. The legislature knows that urban renewal is funded, and that funding does take away from the state school fund. And so far, when this question has been raised about, and it's not just urban renewal, it's enterprise zones, it's housing abatements, impact that state school fund. And so far, the legislature has kept backfilling that fund. The urban renewal impacts on the North Bend School District, basically because of the lack of those monies going to the state school fund, are impacts that would continue. So the existing impacts are happening now. That money's going to the state school fund is money that when you're looking at your own budgets, you probably don't even think about the fact that urban renewal without this amendment will probably expire next year, and then it will make a difference on your budget. If this continues, the amendment is approved, the money that you have been foregoing will continue to be foregone through fiscal year end 2055. And the estimated amount is about $11 million. So it doesn't mean the amount of money that you're contributing to the state school fund goes down from what you're contributing now. It means that you would continue having a portion of your revenues be diverted to the urban renewal area instead of going to the state school fund. This just shows what that impact, this is what it was in fiscal year in 2024, what is projected for fiscal year in 2025, and that amount of money just keeps going, and it goes up by about 3% a year until the end of the urban renewal area in 2055. Because this is a substantial amendment, there are statutory provisions that when the urban renewal area reaches a certain statutory supplied amount of revenue, and it's 10% of their initial maximum indebtedness, and they would reach that amount in fiscal year in 2033. The next year, they have to begin sharing a portion of that revenue with all of the taxing jurisdictions. This is shared only by, this unfortunately does not go directly to the school district as revenue that wouldn't go to the state school fund. This just means this additional revenue would be counted as revenue that the state would look at when they do their offsets. So, and we have tried to figure out how to make this be something that could go back directly to school districts, but we have been unable to do that. So this just shows that over the years, up to 2045, it progressively goes up. There is a property that is being developed that we expect will go off the tax rolls. It's a Indian reservation property, tribe property. And at that point, the revenues go down and then start building back up again. I'm going to go back to impacts on the school district here just to make it clear. The impacts are on the permanent rate levy. They are not on general obligation bond, the projected future impacts, and they are not on local option levies. You have, if you decided to approve these, it would not impact your ability to issue a general obligation bond, and it would not impact your ability to do a local option levy. I think there was some confusion about that, and urban renewal used to take a portion of local option levies and take a portion of general obligation bonds. They no longer do that, and I was part of the legislation that made it that when you did a substantial amendment to your plan, you are no longer able to do that. That was something we really worked hard on with the legislature. So this only affects that money that goes to the state school fund and your equalization formula, and should not mean any reduction in your amount of monies that come through that state school fund. Are there questions on that before I go any further?
Good to go.
Okay. Plan amendment, this is a substantial plan amendment. It's adopted by allowing public input at all stages of the rest of the process. The North Bend Urban Renewal Agency has already reviewed the potential amendment. That's always the first step, and decided to send it out for public review, which meant sending it to all of the taxing districts, including the school district. The city has made a presentation to your staff. They've talked to some of the other taxing districts. We will have a meeting with the county in early December. And there is that 45-day consult and confer period. If any written recommendation is received by the city council from a taxing district, they are required to either accept, reject, or modify that written recommendation in the ordinance that they review that would adopt the amendment. So if you want to make anything very clear and make any recommendations, you should send that in writing. And then also on the public building project, the statute has an odd provision that says if we don't hear anything from you in 45 days, we just say you've approved. So if you know you want to approve, then you don't have to do anything. If you know you haven't made that decision before that 45 days runs, you should either ask the city for additional time on that 45-day time period, or ask them for a specific time, but make some request in writing to the city to extend that 45-day time period. The amendment has to go to the Planning Commission for review. That is next week, and they will consider its conformance to the comprehensive plan. And then there will be a city council hearing and vote and a notice to all citizens, and that's scheduled for either December 9th or 10th. I might have that at the very end. If not, I can look it up. Or Jeff or David might know that.
I think it's the 10th.
Okay. The amendment, other than the increasing the maximum indebtedness, does add some projects. And then because we're going through the plan in a substantial amendment, we are doing general updating to bring it current with present statutory requirements. These are the proposed projects in the plan and the amount of money that actually is available to them if the amendment goes forward. You can see that the main amount of money is projected to be spent on a housing and government services project. And that housing project is on the lot that the county annex building was on. And the city has purchased that building and intends to put housing on. I think I have another slide that goes through that a little more as we move forward. There are other types of projects that they will continue doing. They have been doing storefront grants. There's a park and recreation projects, and there'll be some street and utility upgrades, some more money for storefront grants, downtown streetscape, economic development, so working with their business community. But you can see by far the most money is allocated to this housing project. Here's the slide on that. This was purchased by the Urban Renewal Agency in 2021. It has 54,000 square feet. The city is proposing or wants to put on this property housing that would be workforce housing. So workforce housing is a terminology that's fairly new. It's not low-income housing. It's not Section 8 subsidized housing. It's housing for our, 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 our general workforce. The priority on this project would go to education, healthcare, public safety, and logistics workers. The city has already received a $4 million federal grant to help move this forward. And the city is looking for other ways to leverage this urban renewal funding if it gets approved to move that project forward. Having affordable housing in your community is a fairly big issue, and especially a big issue to those people in these priority areas. So being able to provide that amount of new housing units is really key, I think, to starting to address some of your housing problems. This maximum indebtedness increase would be $33,699,277. That would total a maximum indebtedness of $45,500,000. Much of the initial maximum indebtedness has already been spent. So this total includes that initial maximum indebtedness and then this new maximum indebtedness. And again, maximum indebtedness in urban renewal is the amount of money that they can spend on projects, programs, and administration for the lifetime of the urban renewal area. The capacity of the amount that they would have now minus what they've already spent is about $31.7 million. And that adds up to what we had on the prior slide of their projects. So again, there are two resolutions that we are asking the school district to consider. We understand this is a big ask. We also know that housing is a really big issue in your community, and hope that and see your way to helping the city do something to help address that. So again, these are the upcoming dates, and that meeting with the county, I believe, is December 3rd. And that's all I have. I will stop sharing. I am happy to answer any questions, and I know both David and Jeff are also.
I guess one question, and I want to thank you two gentlemen and Elaine, because you guys spent quite a few hours, I think it was 3 hours yesterday, talking about a lot of this with the three board leaders. Thank you for that. Just to share, I'm sure the other folks have figured it out. So on the first resolution, North Bend is about 29%. Is that ballpark? And does that put the school district in the position of, I mean, like, you guys gotta have, I mean, if the school district were to say, no, we don't want her, we're not gonna pass resolution 1, does the thing die at that point, or is there?
The urban renewal agency would die, and unfortunately, about 63% of all municipalities in the state are fiscally stressed as well. And so it will throw North Bend in this similar situation where we will not be able to grow. Cities that don't grow will die. And so we have to continue to grow the city because we're limited, very much like you, at 3% increment. And when you look at the inflationary data that we've had, unfortunately, that's outpacing what we receive in taxation. This particular project, which is the housing project, can only be done two ways, either through urban renewal funds or a general obligation bond. The Urban Renewal Agency is the most logical way because it's not a new tax, it's a continuance of already, and so there's no impact. The general obligation bond, if that was approved, would be repayment and additional taxation. And the likelihood that the voters of North Bend would approve that is about nil.
May I jump in?
Yes, go ahead, Elaine.
We have not talked about this. I have not talked about this with David and Jeff and the city council, but I don't want to mislead you here. if you did not approve this maximum indebtedness increase, the city has authority to approve an increase on their own of a much smaller amount, and they could consider that, but that amount would not allow them to do that housing project. It would only allow them to continue some of their economic development activities. So I, I, if you didn't approve this and then we came back and did that, I would feel like I was being untruthful here. And I want you to know they can approve something, but it's a much smaller amount and they could not do the housing project.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
So you say it doesn't impact, but it would impact us as it would freeze our taxes, right? And you guys get everything that grows above that. We get stuck in that frozen tax base. If we need extra money to do something like that, what we're doing right now, right? We would end up having to do exactly what you're saying wouldn't work for you, which is going out and getting a bond or passing a levy in order to pay for things that we need because our rate wouldn't be growing except for that 3%, right?
When you say your rate, meaning the school
Our tax
districts?
base rate, yeah.
The school district, as Elaine has stated, is backfilled. You do not lose any money from urban renewal. You have, since the initial voter-approved creation of the urban renewal, which the school district participated in. So for all these decades, you have been backfilled penny for penny, anything that has gone into the urban renewal agency.
Is that a guarantee, or is it just as usual?
Is there ever a guarantee to what the legislature does?
So it's possible we wouldn't get back to it.
If the legislature decided to change the laws and the funding formula, and that's always a possibility, the likelihood of that, again, is,
So we know that with the teacher strike, the governor had a conversation in the last legislature, decided to put a work group together to try to talk about school funding. Unless the legislature pulls a rabbit out of the hat, there's nothing that, everything from COSA on the funding group, there is not a move to put something specific in place to change the ODE distribution formula of schools. Okay, so there is nothing on the horizon to say that they would stop backfilling the dollars that go into urban renewal, right? And the thing that, so not only that, but if you look at your tax bill, there are two different line items for urban renewal. One of them is the levy, and Elaine didn't mention tonight, but she mentioned the other day that the levy is going away next year. Okay, it's sunset. And that will not, when that levy sunsets, the dollars that are acquired through that levy would then get redistributed back into the local taxes of all of the taxing entities. But we won't see a benefit from that. So even if urban renewal went away today, and that amount, like from my tax bill at my house, it's like $225, I wouldn't see a benefit. Okay, it doesn't reduce the tax. That $225 would then be redistributed among all the other taxing agencies. And so I don't get a benefit if there's more that goes out. I don't get a loss if there's more that goes out. I don't get a benefit if there's less that goes out. It all happens at the bottom of the scale, not at the top of the scale. So it's not an additional tax to the citizens. And it doesn't cost the school district any money, because whatever we don't have in our local, our taxing structure, our revenue structure has a box for local taxes and local revenues. There's several categories of local revenues, of which local taxes is one of them. And so if that box has more money in it, we still get $10,000 a kid, roughly. So ODE subtracts what they give us so that we continue to get $10,000 a kid. If that
Moreover, this particular housing project, based on some numbers from the school, is estimated with a student count that should actually be a windfall for the school district of about $500,000 a year once it's built out. Potentially larger depending on how large. We're estimating about a minimum of 72 units, depending on whether or not the city hall portion goes, because it's actually an archaic building. It's costing way more than it would to repair this building, but the actual footprint is spread out a lot larger than we actually need for City Hall. And so potentially the development itself could actually be larger and taller, but it will be dependent on whether or not this particular building is demolished. And that's why we're at this point only limiting it to the minimum of 72 units, which calculates out on a student per student to roughly about $500,000 additional. This is just one of multiple housing projects that we're working within the district, but there's not another funding mechanism to meet the housing needs assessment. The state requires the housing needs assessment. We do an implementation study, and then the question then comes to, how do you afford to put that housing or get that housing started?
If we kind of figured out the other day, so I think you know that the Bangor school site is owned now by the Housing Authority. They're going to put 175 units in. They're going to start with 105 units, of which 85 of them are going to be 2 or 3 bedroom units. And we asked them to give us an estimate of how many students might come from that. And their estimate on a 2 bedroom unit was essentially 1.5 kids per unit. And then on the 3 bedroom units, 2 kids per unit. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean 2 or 1.5 school age kids, but these are going to be family units. If they're talking about the first phase of this, if it's just the annex building, and if there are 50 units, 50 plus units that are going to go in there, we are very conservatively estimating 1 kid per unit. That would be 50 students at $10,000 a student. That's where the $500,000 is coming. Is that if the annex were turned into worker housing, then the school district would likely get, like I said, I'm thinking conservatively 50 kids out of the unit, which would be a windfall for the district. So that's, but I just want you to understand the estimate. When we say $500,000, why do we, that's not just pulled out of the air. Even locally, that's basing the occupancy of, I keep pointing in the direction, is it right restriction? Yeah, back there. The occupancy on numbers that were being given by the Housing Authority just for their unit over in Bangor. So we're not making those up on our own.
So I have one question. Let's just, I mean, yes, we are assuming the backflow comes in, but what is it per year if all of a sudden we are required to pay that? And then if that happened, on the sheet here, where you start getting the revenue sharing, would then we get that revenue sharing if we're no longer getting backfilled? Would that just transfer over to where the school receives that if we're paying it, or how does that work?
If for some reason that the entire legislature took an about face, so it's always, those funds would go back if the state's not backfilling. So that revenue sharing would theoretically, again, based on the law, go back, because it would do so for non-school districts as well. So you would be treated just like any other district. Schools are an educational, the school districts are treated different. It's a carve out. And so every other government that we are approaching or have approached are actually participating voluntarily. So they are giving up. Why do they give up? Because it's been proven that urban renewal actually generates a much greater benefit for those taxing authorities over time.
But what I'm saying is, if we don't get backfilled, we would be giving up, right? We would have to come up with that money.
I think
Yes. If like I said,
So then would we get the revenue sharing is my question.
you would get the revenue sharing, yes.
yeah, I think potentially, I mean, if where they don't don't have any expertise in that really is because the ODE side, ODE is the one in the state of Oregon and their distribution formula is the one that decides that local revenue is going to be counted for or counted against or backfill or not backfill. And that's not on the urban renewal side, that's completely on the student distribution side. So if we look at hypotheticals, hypothetically, if the legislature and the ODE decided to not backfill urban renewal dollars for whatever reason, change the system so that they changed how they counted local revenue, then all bets are off. All right, that's something I can't even anticipate what that could look like. So at the point that if the ODE changes that, knows what they would do, they could decide that we're just like everybody else, and they're just going to give us a dollar amount based on, I mean, there's theories out there where instead of doing it by student, they do it by the number of teachers we have, loosely by students, but by our actual salary. There's all kinds of models that people are talking about for a funding distribution formula. But if that were the case, then it's like I can't even imagine all the different kinds of scenarios, because once what they're doing is off the table, they could make anything happen. But if we were like before, then once we started getting the revenue sharing piece, then it would actually be a revenue line item for us. It would come back directly to us. But just like the conversation about the backfilling, if the money that's going out will be backfilled, but as soon as revenue sharing starts happening and money starts coming back into the local, then we'll have more local dollars, which means that we'll have less dollars from ODE. So the revenue page and the cost page for it are almost a moot point when it comes to our ODE.
As long as the backfill happens.
They would have to completely change the system, which they have the authority to do, but the chance they're going to do it is, it's like right here.
And for the 30 years that our urban renewal agency has been in place, the backfill has occurred. That said, I notice, Elaine, you have your hand up, so you probably have a little expertise you want to share.
I do, just to say that if the legislature decided to change the school funding formula, you are not the only city with urban renewal. They are up and down the coast, up and down I-5, out I-84, all along Southern Oregon. You all would have leverage to work with the legislature. I can't imagine, you will not be standing alone to say you cannot do this to us without figuring out how to resolve this issue. So number one, I agree. And unfortunately, I can't see him on my screen, but I think it's your finance director who's been talking. I agree with everything that he said, and just I think it's really unlikely that anything will happen without you being able to do something.
And just to clarify, that's been the superintendent
Oh,
Vince
well, thank you.
Swagger.
I can't see him, hear him in peace. My apology.
Keep looking at my finance director to make sure I'm not saying things wrong. Oh, you wanted me to interrupt?
Do we have the writing that we're gonna postpone that for a while? In writing? Is it-
Yeah.
It did already in writing?
After we talk amongst our, or after this presentation, the board will decide what time frame they would like.
And then, does anybody know when the low income housing is supposed to start? Because I see this, being priority is education, healthcare, public safety, and logistic workers. I totally get that. But, I was more concerned about the fact that we're gonna be doing some housing project for those and leaving out the low income. I think that's an issue.
So the Bangor School project is permitted and is moving forward and is expected to start demolition before year's end. So that project, we have been consistently working with the Housing Authority on that for much longer than the 4 years I've been here. In fact, I was just in communication with the Housing Authority's Executive Director today. And so that project is on task to move forward and will actually break ground long before this particular project moves forward.
We have, Bruce is on Housing Authority, he's on board. We met with them recently about the Bangor site. And they are in the permitting process. They are expecting to break ground not long after the new year. And they're hoping, if everything goes to plan, they will start having occupancy in January, February, March of 2026. And their estimate is that we will, in the first phase, we will see an upwards of 80 new students, 80 students. Now, new students, whole different topic about whether or not they already live in town and are our students or not, but we're expecting that the estimate would be about 80 students that would be housed there in phase one, and then they're hoping phase two comes approximately 1 year later. And that would have 74 units, and potentially we could see an upwards of 125 to 150 students come out of the Bangor site. And that's all, not just, when we say low income, it's subsidized, but there is, Bruce, what's the? Affordable housing.
Affordable.
It's affordable housing, and it's,
Sliding scale based on income.
and so it's based on percentage of the median.
What's the time frame for this building? If this were to be approved and we were going forward, what is the plan to start that? The demolition, the starting?
So it's all contingent on, of course, of the funding being in place.
Right.
And so we've already gone through our environmentals, brownfield, abatements. We are in the phase right now where we're going through the State Historic Preservation Office and that. We then will go out to a salvage contract and then demolition. And so once the build out's done, we anticipate that this building would be operational in 2026.
I would, I'll volunteer to bring sledgehammer for at least a couple of good months.
There's also there's one salient thing, and so there are multiple. In fact, I had sent the superintendent and encouraged folks to attend the Economic Outlook Forum that's being put on by the Chamber of Commerce, which is actually going to talk about housing in this entire community. This particular project is salient because it's the only one in the country that actually has federal funding attached to it for workforce priority housing. The reason that was done is once you looked at the housing needs assessment, and those are state consultants that come in and work with us, each community, Coos Bay, the county, we all do them, we're required to do them, is that there are these 4 core areas where the those industries and or entities have said they cannot get workers because they cannot find housing. And so right now we have 23 single family houses under construction in our city. We have 4 apartment complexes and some phase of iteration or potential permitting. We have this project, we have the Bangor School project, and then we have 3 additional smaller housing projects that are in play. So we estimate, based on the housing needs assessment, that we need about 1,000 homes over the next 20 years, and you have to have multiple levels of homes. For instance, the annex across the street on the other side of Virginia has 2 vacant lots. You may know of one of them is the ice skating rink. That was a temporary location, but those lots are supposed to, at some point, once we get this project moved, the next iteration over there will be condos. So we are meeting the housing implementation study based on the housing needs assessment. And so if you go to any planning group, whether it be a city or county, they know what HNA stands for and what the implementation is. And so that presentation that will be done at the Economic Outlook Forum will actually holistically tell you about housing. And then you have the container ship project. And someone asked me today, what do you think the percentage is of that project moving? Well, in the past 2 weeks, you've seen over 50 million committed. 25 of that roughly was for permitting of the actual project, another 29 million on the railroad. You have the flyovers in Reedsport that are now moving forward grant funded. You have had the state now match that and backfill those grants, so it's over 100 million investment, and that does not include the hundreds of millions of dollars of private money that's already been attached to that project. There's 2 additional grants in play with the port, and so holistically, estimates are that within 5 years, that project is going to move forward. They attempted on the mega grant, and it was given good advice to slice it up. If that project moves forward with the build out, potentially 8,000 jobs permanently, less than 3,000. And so you see all of the cities working collaboratively together with the county in order to meet our housing needs. And so, as you say, they're at all levels of housing that are needed in this community.
It seems like you're trying to base this project on futuristic hopes and plans to bring in people, but then also like what's the amount that you think that you're gonna bring in financially for this? So the city owns this property?
Yes, the Urban Renewal Agency has already purchased it. It was a collaborative effort with the county.
How much is it going to generate per year?
We estimate that rental income will be in excess of $1 million.
And is that going to pay down the debt that you guys are gonna have us say that you can increase your maximum indebtedness?
The tax increment pays for the project.
So what are you gonna do with the income?
The income then goes back into the district in order to put in roads, put in infrastructure, replace infrastructure within the aging Urban Renewal Agency district. So that's what's called program income.
You're using that to bolster your income since you will be frozen in the tax base, right? Because
Correct.
then the urban renewal gets all the 3% increases every year, and you're stuck in the same spot.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, the city itself does not get that funds from the general fund. So the city itself also, so participatory, you take the program funding, you put it back into the district.
And if that fund isn't realized, if we don't reach that potential, then we don't get that income.
Correct. Yes.
Then I guess my next question is, you guys want to triple the budget on your credit card? We hope we'll be able to get a bunch of people in.
We know because the housing needs assessment already shows it. You wouldn't be, for instance, Coos Bay just announced, 400 to 600 home project. The need's already there. The growth is already there. Since I've been here, we've been ticking just shy of 2% growth every single year. The growth is already happening. You're not seeing growth in your student base because there's not workforce housing available to them. And then you also have to have the backfill of the jobs in order to pay to actually have affordable housing. And so that's what the cities do. We create opportunities for affordable housing so that the city can grow. And so it's a home that the cities have to grow because otherwise we die on the vine. It's unfortunate, but that's just the reality, not because we want to. It's because if you look at the taxation in the state, measures 5 and 50, when you only have a 3% income, we're stuck. School districts are a little different as to how your formulas are worked, but for a local government, we're stuck at that 3% increment.
Forgive me if we don't see your growth because our numbers have been shrinking every year. So I don't see it in business growth. I haven't seen business come to the area in large numbers. I haven't seen our numbers go up in years. They keep shrinking. But I keep hearing from you that we're growth. I just haven't seen it. So forgive me. Our numbers
Yeah, and you don't have to take it from me.
No, I'm just saying.
You've got PSU that does the population estimates as an arm of the census. And so we have openly published, we get them every year, they're the certified numbers. They're also done based on a lot of things such as our building permits. Like I said, I've already told you how many houses just right now. That's growth. We've had substantial growth. We have 2 apartment complexes right now, one that has already cleared land and is building, another one that is in the permitting process. That's all growth. That's why I invite you to, go to the housing forum or go out and take the opportunity to meet with Stephanie Hadley with the Housing Action Team because she is all things in Curry and Coos County as far as housing. So yes, this is actual growth and they're actual real numbers. Whether or not it impacts the school district is a whole different thing, but it is actual growth.
One of the things that I want to add is from the internal standpoint, when you try to hire someone from outside of the area, and the availability of housing in the Coos North Bay area, in a real sense, not in a theoretical or statistical sense, is very minimal. I mean, when I walked through the door and I said, I'm going to be on the job July 1st, 2023. And I had a month to find a house. I had very, very limited options. Okay? And the option that I chose, we felt like we were just fortunate that we could afford because the rent that we jumped into in the house that we were buying was way more than we thought we were looking at when we were looking at places to rent. And so the rental prices as well as availability, I mean, it's not like we had choice. I searched for apartments, just say, hey, we temporarily need an apartment, or we're looking for a house to buy. Okay, it was nothing, right? There was just nothing. There was nothing out there. And so we were just really fortunate that we did have an opportunity. What we hear, because we have access to the NBSD and hospital and so on and so forth, is that all of them down the coast, hospital trying to bring in specialists from outside the area, and they keep getting on house. And teachers, if we were to hire a teacher from outside the area, we don't know where they're going to go, right? Because of that kind of availability issue. And so the realness of the impact, having a space, we dream about having a space where that would be targeted towards the education industry, so that if somebody moved into town because they got a job at either our house, at the PSD, or at Coos Bay, that they would actually be able to find a place they could live while they were searching for what they would consider to be their permanent home. So it would abandon right now. The school district is in the process of trying to build units that are owned by the abandoned school district, so they have a place to live. Having been initial in the previous 5 years, there are school districts around the state that are using funds to do exactly that. Also, school district 45 miles to our north had 2 different properties. One of them they were fixing up. They already had a house on it. They're going to build a house on it just so the teacher has. So those are the realities of the housing market that may not be really visible on the outside, but the reality is for us, we were looking at a speech path, not a speech path, but a school site that we were trying to offer, and we were having a conversation where they can live. And so how can we get them a house because housing availability is so. Those are the kinds of things that we actually do experience from the management side, and we're thinking about people moving and trying to attract highly skilled people from outside of the area.
Can you tell me when the Economic Outlet Forum is?
Yeah, I have that right here. I just sent it to Vince here, so let me open it up real quick. And it says it is Friday, December 13th. It starts at 6:45 a.m. It's at the Mill Casino, and it's their 32 annual one. It's also all things economic development. For instance, shortly here, just across from the pancake mill, you'll see the big, huge dome going up. That's a $25 million project right here in North Bend. So there's actually a lot of development going. We actually have 4 lease opportunities on the big lots that just shut down. So we can't say anything specific about those, but we expect that to be backfilled. Last time that emptied out from Albertsons, it was closed over 10 years. But we are very confident we have secured a regional entity to go in there. Throughout, just between us and Coos Bay, you've seen all the growth and development. That didn't start overnight. They started almost 15 years ago with their urban renewal agency. And so they have all of their waterfront property. You've seen all the way down to the Planet Fitness. And so it is completely collapsing in between. And so that development is occurring. We have a grocery outlet that's taking over our Rite Aid. It'll be right next to the Bangor School project. We have 3 developments right now of additional businesses coming into North Bend that's actually on Broadway. And so there's actually a substantial amount of growth in the city, and it's been very, very consistent. And so we do our annual State of the City address, and the mayor presents as well at the chamber annually, and we put that on our website. So you can go back and actually track a lot of the development, the growth that's occurred here in the city. And so Coos Bay is no different. We've actually been blessed for growth, but it comes down to housing. When I got here, I had to spend 6 weeks in temporary housing. The superintendent at the time had been in a RV. My personal provider, medical provider, has been in an RV for almost a year and a half, waiting to get her property built out. And so that's just the reality. That's, you know, if you reach out to folks, whether or not they have a home or not, and then folks that traditionally would move out of a home and downsize have nothing to downsize into. And so that's where the housing implementation study comes in, and you work with the state. It's state adopted plans. We have to send them to the state, they adopt them, and we implement them. And so there's, you know, we're just very grateful for what's going on in North Bend. This project has been in the works for several years. It's a collaborative project with the county. And so as everyone in the community says, is when's it going to come down? Well, we have to get through all the hurdles that we've gotten through. Now we have to put forth the funding to make that project happen. And it, over the course of the time, will actually pay great dividends back in to the district, especially with the fact that the roads in this city are on a 100-year rotation right now, and there's otherwise not tax money to put those in. So that's why you generate the program funding in order to address infrastructure within the district to eliminate blight and otherwise.
What's the average unit count?
That is workforce housing. So there's not, we run some projections with a grant writer, and then also working with the state. Do you recall what those numbers were roughly? And I know you're, because we had to run those. It's been about 6 months.
There was different levels at kind of.
It's a sliding
It's like
scale
different-
based on the income,
Yeah, it was like
but it's workforce housing, so it is not full market, but it is based on that worker's salary with a percentage.
I'm gonna just take this, I could have to confirm this, but what's coming to mind is like $600 to $1,000 a month, something like that, in that frame. Maybe more, but a lot of them like were pretty low because of the rent controls that were placed onto them.
Okay, and how are you gonna discriminate against the renters and applications? Because you keep saying workforce. The average human being just wanted to be in there and be like, no, I don't work at the school, no, I don't do this, I don't do that. Are you gonna have to discriminate against that? Because it sounds like you think it's gonna be a revolving door, and people are gonna go in, go out, and you're waiting for housing or whatever. It sounds like.
So they get priority. So you work with the entities such as the school districts, the housing, public safety, logistics, et cetera. And so they actually get priority.
How many of those workforces right now do we are we
The last number that we got when we actually surveyed the workforce was 182 people.
Or families?
People waiting for housing within the industry.
How many of those are together because there's 5 in a family?
We don't, when the entities reported their individual workforce, the question wasn't asked how many family or things. They have an employee who was looking or seeking for housing because we had to use it for the federal grant. So at that time, there was 182 that were seeking housing somewhere in the community at those priority locations. We almost, for instance, even lost a police officer because they couldn't find housing. That's just the reality.
Another question, why would you go up for bond?
Who's going to pass a bond right now? The school district, since I've been here, has tried 2. The last most recent had 40 initiatives statewide, and only 16 of those passed in the entire state. So it makes better sense to continue the existing because it's a zero impact to what folks are already paying. If the Urban Renewal Agency went, their tax bill is not going to change. So it makes sense that you just simply continue what we've been doing for 30 years and continue the projects in the community.
My taxes changed when I changed my house.
If you made an increase,
You guys are doing that for the city, you're doing that, so the tax base on the city and all that.
so the city does not set your taxes, and we don't set the value of your property.
And the county will assess the taxes on all of that.
Only the county controls that. So your increment can be no more than 3% unless you file for a permit and you do a substantial renovation or expansion to your property. Who? It has no impact on anyone else's valuation of their property. Okay, you physically would have to do your property.
So there's a motion
I
for
second
break,
that.
which I'm seconding and third. So do we have more questions for David and Jeff? Or before we want to have a break and then come back and talk about schedule? We'd like to.
I'm done.
You have some more questions?
No,
You're good?
I appreciate it.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break. Is that long enough? Okay. 5 minutes. We'll come back at 7:50. Yeah. We'll just carry on with this. And the Christina Simpson rule is out tonight.
What does that mean?
I was gonna tell her, not here.
What does that mean?
David, can you hear me? Is our part of the meeting done?
We're just hanging loose, and then they're going to talk scheduling.
Okay, so do you want me to stay on?
Yes, please.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Just walk down the hallway here, there's a big diorama that you'll see in a plexiglass case. That was supposed to be the urban renewal, like, vision at that time. And so, I mean, you can kind of see what's happened with it, or not happened with it too, yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Just ignore the gorillas and the giraffes and other things that people have put in there.
Okay, well, we'll get going again. I want to thank you, great questions, thank you for the good thorough answers. Is the board ready to discuss what we'd like to do timing-wise and schedule?
Do we have a 45-day limit or without
I don't,
putting it in a submission asking for a longer?
what I think we'll do is any recommendations we have in writing, we'll funnel through Tim, but we would request the city to, whatever date we come up with, we're gonna, in writing prior to December 6th, I think, we would have, or as soon as possible, we'll get a written request, them saying, hey, I guess here's what I would say is this is a critical vote, not to be taken lightly. And, this, as I mentioned yesterday, this is kind of out of our regular education wheelhouse. So this is, there's some education piece that's been taking place on I know me and quite a few of the other board members. We have a couple that are quite familiar with it from other some of them. But you guys don't want a hip shot vote here. You want something that's carefully considered. We've done due diligence. And when we make, in my family, when we make critical decisions, we call them no regrets. Because the decision we make, that's it. So anyhow, with that, Carol, I went through some options and.
I'm for the work session in January.
Okay.
And I presume that would be followed by the decision in the February.
I would think so.
Correct.
Action.
Correct. So probably, I don't know what that first Thursday is, but by February 7th. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Well, is there a time frame here where, because I'm assuming you want continuity from so that it doesn't stop and you want to start again? What is your date?
Our only critical timing is we've already been awarded the federal grant, and so we have a timetable to get that implementation and get that project done. Otherwise, we lose the 4 million. I think the district is familiar with, unfortunately, when certain things don't pass, you lose state money. And so that's our real timing.
What is that date?
That was awarded September of this year. And so we are now in the post-application process of acceptance. And so that 4 million needs to be spent within calendar year 2025. And so we know that we should be able to have enough development to put that towards that. That money cannot, however, be used for the demolition, which means we have to get the demolition done before we can actually start pulling down those funds. The government shutdown on the budget had delayed that, and so we lost 6 to 8 months off of our timetable because this was actually put in 2022. Yeah, I think that 2022 is when we did the initial submittal. So
somewhere for that particular pocket of money, it has to be spent.
Yeah, that's
in
the
25.
only caveat on this.
Has to come down for that to start.
Yes.
And on the first issue here, the increase in money, understandable, everything costing more, and some housing.
Well,
Help me
it's just
finish.
that building part is the
Yeah.
main thing, not the other houses, but.
No, but the first,
The annex the number of units that are intended to go into what is now the annex, let's see what this, 455.
It's a minimum of 72.
72.
If the second part happens, which includes completely redoing City Hall. and
Right, I know, I'm talking about the
other
first.
units of that, but the very first project is 50-something units in the
It's 72.
72 units.
annex alone is 72? Okay,
Yes.
so I misunderstood. I thought it was in the 50s,
Yeah.
actually. Okay, annex.
And that's with the first, and the second is where we get more housing and a new building.
Well, there won't be a second, so help me understand the second, meaning,
You have two things being proposed here.
yes, but they're not separate projects. They're only one project. If we demolish City Hall and redo the whole block, City Hall will be built as offices into the larger housing development. The first floor, as we had discussed during a meeting yesterday, was that the first floor on Union would be most likely childcare. And so it's a multi-purpose building that would also have city offices in it. And that allows us to maximize the space across the drive and all the way over.
So where I'm confused, excuse me, is just, this isn't two different things, this is actually one
It's
thing.
one project. The
So-
reason there's a second resolution is because if you involve a government building in a project, you have to have a second standalone resolution. If we choose not to do anything with this building, then it's only one resolution. But any time that you're going to use Urban Renewal Agency for a public building, we have to have that second, but it is only one project expected. If the second resolution wasn't passed, it'll still only be one project. It just won't include government offices. But the first floor is planned to have childcare on it,
So you're talking about.
and then housing above it.
The second portion of this is for this to be rebuilt right here.
Yes,
Okay.
it would be the entire block that would
The
be,
first portion.
the first resolution
or
covers
first resolution.
all housing.
Okay, 1, 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where are you gonna do business when don't have a city hall anymore?
We actually have already started discussing where we will have temporary locations. So,
When was this building originally built?
Pre-1930s,
What happened to this building?
it would be demolished. It would be housing and government offices in it.
Oh, so this would be redone too.
Yeah, this would be demolished. But again, that's all contingent on the urban renewal and the city council approving that inherently with the project. This building has already had its seismic study. And so the cost to actually get it up to seismic far exceeds what the city actually has that it could put in it and the value. The second is under the state audit of police departments. We consistently fail the inspection because the police department is spread out and it is not separate from the public access. So for instance, you all, if you went to the restroom, you passed our evidence room and you probably don't even know you passed our evidence room and you're not even supposed to even be that close to it. And so unfortunately, we fail those things because this was built as a fire station. And then it was used as a library. And so it's been, and then this was renovated, of course, to, be, because there used to be doors there. So we can see. So unfortunately, the maintenance and upkeep of this building just keeps going up. We don't need all the space that we have in here. For instance, there's an office space there that is actually just storage because technology and everything and budgets has reduced the FTE of our staff over time. And so we know that we can fit in a much smaller footprint, and we can also reduce the overall cost to the taxpayers by being in a much more efficient, space. So.
Hey, Tim, you have a question?
Well, I just had a couple comments, that I was gonna address as soon as
Do you wanna come up?
they were done with this first part. You guys are fine. On page 86 of your packet, there are the two resolutions here that were being put up tonight, that initially we were asking action. I wanted to point out on page 86, that is the resolution to increase the maximum indebtedness of the city, for the urban renewal plan. On sentence number 3, there's a sentence there that's incorrect. So as you guys are kind of thinking about this moving forward, there's just a couple things I want you to be aware of. The initial cover letter from the city talked about the fact that by increasing the maximum indebtedness of the city, that it would limit the ability to go to a special levy. That doesn't include the district, us as a school district. So an initial person I had talked to thought that that special levy also included a local option levy, which is not correct. So that sentence there should be removed. It does not affect our ability to go for, as Elaine stated, the general obligation bond or the local option levy. So if we wanted to do that, we could still do that. The rest of that, it does stand, but this goes along with Exhibit A. And you'll also notice in Exhibit A, there was some discussion and there was some creative thinking about what potentially could happen with the school district offices. So you'll see language in there regarding the school district offices potentially sharing space with the city. That language is all going to be removed. The school district office is not included in the urban renewal plan, and I've talked to these gentlemen about that. So when this comes back to vote, any reference to the school district will be removed from this as well. So that's the first resolution. The second one is that second part of it, in order for the city to proceed with the city hall portion of it. Again, the school district removed completely of that. I've also had several meetings with some individuals at the state regarding the state school fund. I'm also very familiar with it. This is the course I teach to principal candidates at U of O. So anybody getting a principal license at U of O goes through this finance course that I teach on the state school fund. It's incredibly complex. Some of the language, I squirm a little bit just because of the technical details that I know, but the way they're explaining it to you is the best way to understand it. It is nearly a dollar for dollar match. That it does get backfilled. I don't see that ever going away. I think Vince is correct. I mean, if that went away, what it would mean would be a fundamental shift in how the state views education and the idea of equity. A district like Lake Oswego, who can raise so much money in property taxes, would be able to educate their kids far better than we could because they could raise more money in property taxes than we could. So that's the idea behind that equalization formula. So if that were to go away, I mean, it wouldn't make sense for that piece of that formula to go away. So I don't have any concerns about that. And we will be backfilled to a point where there's no noticeable difference. So that's 100% correct there. And then the other thing, I have talked to GHR. They have a letter drafted for us. We just need some final dates to put into that. Basically saying if the board chooses that that's the path they want to go, they have not yet concurred within that 45-day period, so we can extend that deadline. So that's already all lined up for you guys too. So any other questions about that?
Michelle, do you know the date of our January work session?
I believe it's the 23rd.
Okay.
January 23rd, yes.
So moving toward a timeline and finalizing that is, does the board want to move that way toward I'm not making a motion, but 20?
We need a consensus, I think. But
I don't know.
Do we have to have
I think we have to have
my Robert's guy?
We'll go with we'll do a motion.
Be
but-
official.
Okay.
Yeah, let's be official.
Is there any other option that we wanted to consider, or is that the one? You know, just for your guys' information, the reason we're not meeting the first Thursday of this month was 6 of the 7 board members went to a conference, and we moved it to this weekend, and then we normally don't schedule, we haven't scheduled work sessions, and we have strategic planning going on, which has been significant time commitment for several of the board members. So just respecting their time, just for when the mayor asks. Just a question for you, I realize you probably can't commit to this with that time frame. You know, probably not what you'd like, but that's what we're looking at doing, is that?
This is a very, very important decision.
Yes, it
And
is.
so the city recognizes that. And so we're going to work within the parameters, because anything short of a yes, as I mentioned, really decimates our ability to do this project.
All right, thank you. All right, so is there a motion?
That motion that we move our consideration just to our January work session and then to the following.
To vote on the 6th of February, okay? All right. So there's a motion and a second to move the discussion of this topic to our January 2025 work session on the January 23rd. And then we would meet at the regular board meeting on February 6th and vote on this. Any discussion about this? Okay. Vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay? 7-0.
All right, thank you, and thank you, Elaine.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you. Good
All right,
night.
bye-bye. Good night.
That's another billable hour, Elaine. Okay, thank you. All right, we've already had break. We'll just jump on to, thank you. Agenda item 8, revision of policy IKF graduation requirements action.
All right.
And, I'm sorry, I'm getting ready to hand it to you. Hold on. I know you're keyed up, you're ready. You know, this, just at a high level, this document, IKF's been revised to include a North Bend diploma option. This has been created to allow students with voluntary seek to demonstrate proficiency in Oregon essential skills through assessment testing or passive performance tasks. This is voluntary on the student's part and would be effective in the 2026 graduating class. At a very high level, brief history, I think as a result of Senate Bill 744, the Oregon Board of Education suspended the assessment of essential skills as a requirement for receiving a high school diploma through the 2027-2028 school year. That was a quote from the website. And this was essentially done in response to COVID. Vince, take it away.
All right, so, as you know, we've had a lot of conversations about the concept of what a North Bend diploma would look like. And so, we have the policy, IKF, graduation requirements. Ironically, the policy that we recently modified to change our requirements for an honors diploma. This time, there's entirely new language. Almost, I realize all of it is in yellow. So if you'll start with the very first page, as you go down the page, the first item in yellow, you see that we renamed our regular diploma the Standard Oregon Diploma. Okay? That's what students are currently receiving. No changes other than the name. Okay? Then as you move down, the North Bend Diploma. So the basic concept is that the North Bend Diploma is just like the Standard Diploma, except you add additional requirements of essential skills. So if you go to the bottom of the yellow under number 9, you will see this yellow boldface. I did italicize it. I probably should have underscored it. Every indicator that I did to separate it from the rest, because everything above it is just the Oregon standard. So students will also be required to successfully complete the Oregon State Assessment Test with a score of three or above in all three areas required by the state of Oregon. Actually, in all areas required by the state of Oregon. I worded it like that in case at some point in time the state of Oregon required additional subject matter for their Oregon-based assessment test, i.e. social studies. We've gone for decades without any social studies test, but I know that at the national level, state level, they're working on social studies standards, and they very well may do that. So if they do that, we would then require that as well, right? If I'm specific about the three areas that we already measure, and they add an area, we have to change it, right? A student who does not pass any or all portions of the test in their junior year will have the opportunity to retake any section in their senior year or pass a performance task for any of the state assessment areas not met. And this is where and then the next page is kind of yellow. The North Bend diploma will be available for students beginning with the graduating class of 2026 and beyond. So through our conversation, we had draft language that was specific to interim assessments. We widened that out by just saying a performance test. A performance test may include an interim assessment, but it may include other ways to show proficiency in the essential skills, which would be determined essentially in kind of an AR type fashion. We'll work with our directors of teaching and learning and our high school staff about a menu of options, of potential options for meeting essential skills.
Will different students have different options then? So it's not like you're deciding what to do for all students? You're saying there could be more than one option for individually for each student?
Correct. Yeah, if you think back to when essential skills were required pre-COVID, you could do, let's say, a writing performance task that would be measured by staff. You could show proficiency. We had students taking work keys. The colleges used to use work keys as their entrance exam. Community colleges. I know I believe the state of Oregon uses it when the employment department still uses work keys to do a baseline measurement of your skill set as you start the process of trying to get to a job. So the state of Oregon had metrics for that, so they achieved a first score. So there are a variety of potential options for students to be able to prove their proficiency in the essential skills. So rather than be specific, typically policy language kind of opens the door for some things, and that would give our professional educators the opportunity to develop a list of potential. The one that we probably are going to push the most, of course, though, is our interim assessments. But at least like we talked about the last time, and that was the only thing on the table. I think you were uncomfortable with that, so we created the language in this to open it up a little bit so that there could be other options for us. So everything else in IKF is exactly as was adopted a month ago. So this would then put into place the policy, as I said in the cover sheet. It would then give Principal Hamilton the opportunity to begin implementation so that the graduating class of 2026 would have the opportunity to take the test. We're obviously trying to encourage all of our juniors this year to take the state assessment, and then give them the opportunity to students who would like to achieve a North Bend diploma to, if they don't pass all of the portions of the test, to work with them to get the place where they have proficiency in all of those areas.
I move for the board to adopt policy IKF graduation requirements as presented.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second to adopt policy IKF graduation requirements as recommended. Debate or discussion on this? 8 o'clock now, so. All right, we'll move to a a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay? 7-0. All right,
How
thank
many
you.
months did that take?
Too many months.
Yeah, but we just finished it, so
Yeah.
that's good. Thank you.
We made the finish line.
And our goal is to not change policy IKF next month.
Yes.
Let's leave it
We'll
simple.
see what we can do.
Should be achievable, we would hope. Okay, agenda item 9, policy second read. Vince, you got anything?
Pretty much just, what's in your cover sheet. There's one policy that, that we are asking you to delete. And then when you, adopt the other policies, should you choose to do so, it will be replaced with a new policy. And that's the one that, Sam put together having to do with the, surplus, our surplus equipment policy, that he shared, with you. And so, at this point in time, I think most of the rest of these, are really pretty straightforward. You'll notice as you get towards, the IGEAF, let's see. Seems like we had some, kind of the back and forth, they had one and then the opposite. One started with G and one started with J, and so they were exactly the same. And so on and so forth. So at this point, I think we're just open to take questions. If you have any questions, if not, then the two different motions, we did this before, where we had one motion that covered the deletion of the policy, and the next motion that voted to adopt the new NMAS. It's kind of an omnibus. I love the word omnibus. Kind of an omnibus motion.
Any questions for Vince or any questions?
I move that the board delete the policies listed above recommended for deletion.
Second.
Motion by Dallas, a second by Julie, and it is I move the board delete the policies listed above recommended for deletion. Any further debate or discussion? Okay, vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay? 7-0. Is
I move that the board adopt the policies listed above recommended for adoption.
Okay, there's a motion and a second, and the motion is I move that the board adopt the policies listed above recommended for adoption. Any further debate or discussion? Okay, let's have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay? 7-0. Okay. Agenda item 10, adopted calendar change action.
The 8th graders' last day of school is the day that they have their Laverne Park trip. So they don't actually attend on the day that is the last day of school for, like 7th graders, okay? So, there was some confusion last year because it was not actually stated like that on our adopted calendar, that, their last day of school is that day. And so, we are asking, anytime there's a calendar change to that adopted calendar, that has to come to you. And so, the calendar has been included, the last day of school for the 8th graders as, the day before everybody else. So our seniors have graduated, so they're out of the picture already. And then the 8th graders, they get one free day. It
When
does
is
not, by the way, it does not shorten their year to the point where we are not compliant with OS, with our Division 22 standards for hours for 8th graders.
So in the past, the 8th graders, like in this calendar year, would have done their 8th grade celebration on the 12th. So what's the reason? Just, so they'll have them do their big celebration on the day before the other kid's last day, just because?
Yeah, I'm assuming, I'm hedging because I inherited that, and I have no idea what.
Well, no, but I guess my question is, like, other years, the last day of school, 7th graders, 6th graders are in class. That last day of school is when 8th graders went to the Laverne Park or whatever. But now we're saying we wanna change it, so this is the first time we're trying to change it.
No, they actually did it last year. Last year,
Oh,
if the last day of school was a Friday, their Laverne Park trip was on Thursday.
and so they didn't go.
We're not asking them to come back after.
Oh, right, once they do their trip.
Once they do their trip, they don't come back into the building.
So they did that last year without doing the calendar change, is what you're saying,
Correct.
which created phone calls.
So the phone call, their parents say, "Oh, my kid's at school, we're not tomorrow."
Lots of phone calls.
Their last day was Laverne Park.
Yeah, always. Yeah.
So the Laverne Park trip is their last big thing, and then we don't ask them to come back the next morning. And it's, when you think about it, the next morning is also, a Friday, so it's a half day, just a partial day. So we're just putting it on the calendar, so when parents look at the calendar, they'll know if they're just gonna come back to school.
I moved to eliminate some phone calls from Michelle, and I moved for the board to amend the currently adopted 24-25 district calendar to reflect that June 11th, 25 will be the last day of school for 8th grade students.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. The motion is I move for the board to amend the currently adopted 2024-2025 district calendar to reflect that June 11th, 2025 will be the last day of school for 8th grade students. Any further discussion? Okay, vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
7-0. Agenda item 11, OSBA elections action. 11A, Board of Directors, position 9. And we have our very own Jacqueline Crook from South Coast ESD. She is running against a gentleman from Roseburg, Mr. Steve Hammerson. And their resumes and what they're for are printed up there and on their candidate questionnaires. With that, is there any discussion of these two candidates, or are we ready to move to a vote of who you're going to vote for?
Jacqueline is our current.
Yes.
And how long has she been?
Since time immemorial. I'm joking, but it's been a long time.
And of course, we most of us all ran into her at the conference. She, question, she knows what's going on, and she's, from what I understand, doing a pretty good job. I respect the fact that the other gentleman would like to do this, because it's probably a thankless job, and a lot of work. But I would, well, this discussion.
Any further discussion before we?
How are we doing this?
I think we'll just start with Dallas.
Oh, who are we going for?
Yeah, just say and.
I like that. Do we have to make a motion?
No, I think we'll just see if
Got it.
you need a majority of you need more than 4 or more. So Dallas, who would you like to?
I'm gonna go with Jen.
Okay. Julie?
I'm going with Steve.
We'll go with Steve.
I'm gonna go with Jacqueline.
Go with Jacqueline.
We're gonna go with Jacqueline.
Okay. 5-2. Jacqueline's our board of directors position 9. Okay. B, resolution amends the OSBA dues schedule. So on page 129, there is a dues, kind of a summary of what they want to do. And essentially, what I remember from the meeting is that essentially they want to increase the dues 15% for 5 years.
Yeah, over the next 5 years, our dues will double. But not everybody's. I don't know if you guys want to take a look at the numbers. So if we look down,
District 1, so District 1, their their number is gonna sextuple. And District 11, their number won't even go up 50%, or will go up, no, it won't go up 50%. So you got a district where their number is gonna go up 6 times what it was previously, and a district where their number won't even go up more than 45%.
So,
And that's the only district. Everybody else is pretty much doubles. Everybody else is pretty much evenly doubles. The top one is crazy high for what they're doing with 6
and
times.
the reason why that's the case is that they established a floor. And so the current floor, so no matter how small you are right now, you're gonna pay $250.25. The floor, or the threshold for the smallest districts, that have under 100 students, will go from there to $1,800. So yeah, it just goes crazy high for them. And so, for us.
Or just the elevator went up.
Yeah, the elevator went up. You don't get to go to first floor. We are the district member 07, because we have between 2,500 and 3,999 students, and that includes the charter school. Okay, our rate, at this point in time, right, Ted? Our rate's the 5,900
It goes up like 104%.
and it's gonna go up to $11,973.05. And so, yeah, it's going to just about that. So,
Are they even worth that much?
well, that's up to you. Okay, but I will say this. I seldom do this, but I personally believe that. I don't mind dues increasing. I think that is a necessary function for time. And I buy, is it worth it? The policy piece, I think, pays for itself probably, but ironically, there's an additional charge for the policy piece. But I think this, personally, I do not recommend that we say yes to this. I think this schedule increase is way too aggressive.
Yeah.
I agree. And so,
They should have started out a little lower, they wanted to pass.
Yeah.
yeah, I think they're trying to catch up to where their consultants say they should be, which is essentially the message that you received when you went to the dinner. That they had a firm that says they charge too little, and this is what they think we ought to do.
I think it's like you said, it's aggressive, and the times that we're in right now, that's kind of one of those things. It's like,
Yeah.
everybody else is reaching in your pocket.
So for the record, the superintendent does not recommend that we vote.
Appreciate the recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay, same deal. Do we want to discuss further, or are we ready to go?
I know what I do.
Okay, we have to make a motion on this
Hold
one.
on.
I think they haven't had a raise since '98, and they're entitled to a raise, I think, but this is a little excessive.
Yeah.
And I think, I agree with you guys.
We need to get a raise either.
Too aggressive, and I think we need to send a message to them, yeah, maybe a raise is appropriate, but
But not that.
rethink it,
Yeah.
rethink it.
I
And I don't think we're gonna be the only ones to have that.
Good
It's
counsel.
interesting to see what the other districts do.
But Dave, that was some good counsel. So, any further comments before we move to vote? Okay, with that, Dallas, how do you vote? Yes or no? Nay?
No.
No?
No.
No? I'm a no.
No.
No?
No? No, we got to know quickly. 7-0, that's a no.
Good work.
Okay, no action. Item 12, integrated programs 2023 to 2024. Annual report, no action.
No action,
Tim
but it is
Pryor?
an official report that is required.
Well, we have plenty of time left this evening.
We do. I'll keep
We're not
it,
seeing.
I'll keep it down to 30, 40 minutes. So, The records for tonight must show that we have the annual report presented for integrated guidance. This is now called integrated guidance. It's the combination of the student investment account and the high school success and early intervention and support grants. So this was put together and it goes one more year. So at the end of this year, we don't have all the data compiled yet because to release, because a lot of it's still embargoed. But at the end of next year will be the end, or I guess the end of this year, we'll be creating a new integrated guidance plan for next year. So we're using the strategic planning process to help guide the next integrated guidance plan and the funding that will help, where we'll use this funding. So in the last plan, we had the outcomes here listed: increasing reading and mathematics performance of all students, to close the achievement gap, develop important and improve multiple pathways to graduation and link CTE programs and post-high school success, create and support a school culture, addresses safety and social emotional needs. We wanted to have 90% of students on track towards graduation by the end of 9th grade. Students will document and track post-secondary plans and move along a deliberate path through school towards their preferred next steps, career or college, and leverage strategies to support attendance advocates. This plan was put together post-COVID. I believe we still all had this thought in our mind that everything would return to the way it was. Obviously, there's lots of barriers we're still faced with and challenges we still have. There is still a lot of learning loss that needs to be addressed, so we're still experiencing some challenges regarding attendance, and that is hindering our abilities in a lot of ways to get students back to the levels we want them at. We also are faced with significant social emotional learning needs that have been unmet and behavioral challenges. So that is where a large portion of this money goes to, is trying to help support those social, emotional, and behavioral challenges of students. So on page 132, you can see for 2023-24 where that grant money went. And there's just a list of different type of positions and programs where that money kind of broke down to. As you review this, if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or I could answer them at a later time. The next step in this yearly annual progress report would be to open to public comment. And that has to officially be opened to public comment and then closed, and then the minutes would reflect that. Yeah.
Okay. We're going to open agenda item 12B, public comments and questions. We're opening for public comment. Is there any public comment?
Do we have, what's the outdoor ed teacher?
Middle school.
What does that mean?
It's a middle school teacher. I don't know, what does the outdoor ed teacher do?
Ryan Gall
Ryan Gall, yeah.
teaches some classes related to outdoor
Oh, yeah, he's with the bow and arrows and all that stuff, yeah.
There you go.
crabbing, clamming, kinds of local activities and so forth.
And what does the MS STEM stand for? Oh, middle school, and then STEM stands for?
Science, technology, and math.
Okay.
It's the same position.
I assume so.
Mhm.
Any other public comments before we close the public comments? Okay, I don't see any more. I'm closing the public hearings on this. That's it. Tim, you good?
That's it.
All right, agenda item 13, board comments. Thank you, Tim. 14, information only. 15, I'm gonna go to the hammer.
Yeah. Yes.